So, good day, my dear grade 12 learners. So, congratulations. Narito na kayo ngayon sa last chapter ng first part ng first semester sa subject na Social Doctrine of the Church. Pag-aaralan natin ngayon ng seventh commandment. Napag-aaralan natin human community, the fifth commandment, and now the seventh commandment. Pwede nyo itong panoorin para to study in advance. Okay? The seventh commandment is, you shall not steal. Huwag kang magnakaw. So, what is set forth by the seven commandments? Question 503. The seventh commandment requires respect for the universal destination and distribution of goods. Isa rin pong itong prinsipyo for reflection sa social doctrine of the church, ang universal destination and distribution of goods. Maalala pa ninyo mga prinsipyo, no? Subsidiarity, no? Common good, solidarity. So ito yung pang-apat, universal destination and distribution of goods. Ibig sabihin na ang mga goods ay destined universally, ibig sabihin for all. Yung nilikha ng Diyos dito sa planet Earth ay para sa lahat, hindi lang para sa iilan. And universal distribution of goods, hindi lang destination, kundi i-distribute ang goods na universally sa lahat, hindi lang sa iilan. And itong seventh commandment, the private ownership of them. Dito papasok yung private property. Ito rin na isang prinsipyo, pero this is under the universal destination of goods. No? Yung private ownership or private property of them. Okay? So, napaka-importante yung prinsipyo yan. Universal destination of goods and private property. As well as respect for persons. No? Respeto natin sa mga tao. Itong seventh commandment na ito. Their property, of course, we respect. Igalang natin ang mga properties, lupa, no, sasakyan, anumang properties, and integrity of creation. Ibig sabihin yung integridad ng creation. The church also finds in this commandment the basis for her social doctrine. So sa seventh commandment, ito yung basis ng social doctrine of the church. So ngayon mas palalim na tayo sa social doctrine of the church. So yung seventh commandment is basically sa social doctrine. Ayan. Okay. This involves the correct way of acting in economic. Ano ba yung correct way? Ano ba yung tamang gawain? Ano ba yung mabuting gawain sa ekonomiya, sa social life and political life? The right and the duty of human labor, yung pagkatrabaho, justice and solidarity among nations, ang katarungan at malasakit among nations, and finally, love for the poor. So yan ang mga pag-aaralan natin dito sa seventh commandment, no? So aside from the private property, pag-aaralan din natin napakarami, work, yan, justice and solidarity among nations, and love for the poor. Sa question 504, ang tanong po natin ay, under what conditions does the right to private property exist? Anong kondisyon ng yung karapatan natin ng private property, pagmamay-ari ng lupa, bahay, sasakyan, anumang gamit, cellphone? The right to private property exists, exists yung karapatan na magkaroon ng sariling mga properties provided the property is acquired or received in a just way. Yung property na yan ay na-acquire mo, o natanggap mo sa just way, tamang paraan, makatarungang pamaraan, sa pagbili mo, sa pagtrabaho mo, hindi mo ito ninakaw o hindi ito dahil sa korupsyon. And that the universal destination of goods for the satisfaction of the basic needs of all takes precedence. So, anong mas importante, Father? Private property or universal destination of goods. Private property is you own something of this earth, pero ang mga what we own ay for all. So mas importante yung universal destination of goods for the satisfaction of the basic needs of all takes precedence. So ang private property natin ay merong social dimension. So question 505, what is the purpose of private property? So ang purpose po ng private property is to guarantee the freedom, ang kalayaan at dignidad ng individual persons, no? Kapag may private property, yung freedom nila to invest, to work for business, yung dignidad nilang individual persons, ito yung bunga ng aking trabaho at sakripisyo by helping them to meet the basic needs of those in their charge. So may lupa sila, may bahay, may mga gamit, mga sasakyan sa pagtrabaho, kailangan nila sa pagtrabaho nila. So kailangan nila ito, ang purpose of private property is to meet the basic needs of those in their charge. Tulad ng cellphone, kailangan ko ito, itong headphones na ito, ang wifi, no, of those in their in charge, and also of others who are in need. So ang private property rin po ay kailangan para matulungan natin ang iba sa kanilang pangailangan. Question 506, what does the seventh commandment require? Yung thou shalt not steal na yan. So the seventh commandment requires respect for the goods of others. Igalang natin yung mga pagmamay-ari ng iba, mga private properties, land, lupa, bahay, bisikleta, mga gamit, cellphone, ari-arian, mga kailangan sa trabaho, kailangan sa leisure, cellphone, ballpen, man. So kailangan natin igalang to the practice of justice, to give what is due to the other, and charity, and temperance, and solidarity. In particular, itong seventh commandment na ito, it requires respect for promises made. May mga promises ka ginawa, promissory note. Father, Sir Principal, hindi ako makapagbayad, I'll promise to pay kapag dumating na ang 4 piece. Minsan promises are made to be broken. So kailangan nating respeto mga promises, mga pangakong hindi dapat napapako. And contract, mga kontrata, 1-year contract, 2 years contract, agreed to. Tapos reparation for injustice, kung meron ka mga ninakaw, kailangan mong ibalik, sinira mo, kailangan mong bayaran, committed, and restitution of stolen goods. Okay, kapag nakabasag ka ng image ni Mama Mary ng Immaculate Conception, wala kang perang pangpalit, at least aminin mo yung katotohanan. At saka kung hindi mo pwedeng mabayaran ito ng pera kasi pagmamay-ari yan ng simbahan sa pamagitan ng time and talent mo na halaga nung nasira mong image ni Mama Mary. Kung image na yun ay 20,000, 15,000 o may depreciation value 5,000, 10,000, yun dapat ang halaga katumbas ng iyong serbisyo sa sinira mong gamit ng simbahan. For example, and respect for the integrity of creation. Itong mga kahoy, punong kahoy, lahat, mga kapaligiran, ang hangin, ang tubig, dagat, ilog, mga animals, integrity of creation. Kailangan natin itong i-respeto, igalang, kasi ito ay para sa lahat. Huwag nating abusuhin ang environment by the prudent and moderate use of the minerals. Yung mga mining, Father, anti-mining ka ba? Kailangan ng mining, pero prudent and moderate use. Vegetables, animal resources, manok, baboy, baka, mga pagkain of the universe with special attention to those species which are in danger of extinction. Okay? So yan ang nire-require ng 7th commandment. So nabanggit natin kanina yung animals. So what attitude should people have toward animals? So ano ba mga hayop sa inyong bahay? Hindi naman yung kapatid mo yung hayop na hayop ka. Hindi, no? Of course, ang tao ay hayop daw, no? Rational animal. So anong attitude natin na sa mga pets natin, mga aso, pusa and others? People must treat animals with kindness, no? As creatures of God. Ang aso, pusa na ito ay creatures of God. Father, paano naman yung lamok at ipis, no? Yung lamok, may purpose din yan, no? Hindi lang nagbibigay ng dengue. Yan ay pagkain ng mga frogs, at frogs ay pagkain ng mga etc. No? And avoid both excessive love for animals, no? Kung minsan mga ibang tao, like sa Europe, mas mahal pa nilang aso kaysa sa tao. And an indiscriminate use of them, no? Yung especially by scientific experiments, no? For example, pag target gun mo ang pusa o aso, no? O scientific experiments, no? Maalala ko may kwento ng isang estudyante na sa kanilang science lab, no? Under isang teacher, no? Instead na frog ang ginamit nila ay pusa. Ang ginamit nila na pang experiment, no? Tanggalin yung mga yaks na kadiri, no? So medyo masama rin yun, no? Okay? That go beyond reasonable limits and entail needless suffering for the animals. What is forbidden by the 7th commandment? Na bang pinagbabawal ng 7th commandment? Above all, the 7th commandment forbids theft, yung pagnanakaw. Kaya ang tanong ko sa inyo, nasubukan na ba niyo nagnakaw? May nagsasabi sa inyo, kumupit ng 20, ng 50, no? Gamit, no? Yung pagnanakaw na yan. This is a taking or using of another's property against the reasonable will of the owner na walang paalam. For example, dito sa kumbento, merong isang convent scholar or convent boy na kumuha ng earphones ng isang convent scholar. So, nagsinungaling, no? Pero may ebidensya na siya yung kumuha. Kaya yun ay isang pagnanakaw. Minsan ang pagnanakaw, kapatid niya ang pagsisinungaling. Okay? So tulad ng mga corrupt na official, no, ninanakaw nila ang pera ng pera ng tao kasi taxes, hindi naman nila pera yan. Kaya hindi pwede ang EPAL. Sabi nila, project of, no, governor so or so, no? So, hindi naman nila alam na pera naman yun ng mga taong bayan through taxes. Okay. This can be done also by paying unjust wages, yung pagpapasahod ka na unjust, below minimum wage, by speculation on the value of goods in order to gain an advantage to the detriment of others. No? Bibilihin mo ng napakamura ang baboy kasi nga mayroong African swine, no? To take advantage of others dahil sa kagipitan, no? Binabarat mo, no? Yung mga traders, binabarat nila yung mga palay at mga mais na mga mahihirap na magsasaka. Or by the forgery of checks, no? Yung mga talbog na cheque. Okay, yung mag-sign ka para sa iba, hindi mo naman signature, forgery of checks or invoices. Also forbidden is tax evasion, tatakasan mo yung mga taxes mo. Or business fraud, no? Willfully damaging private or public property, sisirain mga private, kasi lang gusto mo, and public. Tulad ng pagsunog ng Divine Word High School of Danaili noong 2013, talagang malaking kasalanan yun. Sino man ang gumawa nun. Usury, no, yan yung usury. Ang usury ay, sorry mga guys, tumawag si Gilmar, no? Kaya pinos ko lang. So, usury. Ang usury ay ito yung napakalaking interest, ng 5, 6, 20% sa pangungutang. No? Alam ba ninyo kung bakit 5, 6 ang tawag sa 5, 6 na mga Bombay? Kasi sa sa 10 pesos yata, no? Piso yung anak, no? So para bang 20%, 10 times 0.20, 2 pesos yata, no? Kaya 20%, 20% kaya 5, 6. So I think of 5 pesos times 0.20 is 1 peso. So in every 5 peso na utangin mo, ang ibabalik mo ay 6 peso. Kaya 5, 6. Kasi 5 times 0.20 equals 1 peso. So 20%. For example, umutang ka ng 1,000 sa Bombay. Ang ibabalik mo ay 200 pesos na anak. No? So 1,200. No? Alright? Per month. O yan na, per month pa. Pag ma-delay-delay ka, so kawawa ka sa utang. So sabi nila, kung gusto mong yumaman, huwag kang umutang. Okay? So sana, my dear learners, matutunan yung huwag umutang. Corruption. Yan, corruption. The private abuse of common goods. Work deliberately done poorly. Pag-aaral na very poor. Mayroong mga iba sa inyo dyan na late, mag-submit. Mas pinapauna pa mga ibang bagay kaysa sa pag-aaral. Ano ba talaga ate? Ano ba talaga kuya? Anong priority mo? Mag-aral o mag-business? Kung wala kang puso sa pag-aaral, mag-business ka na lang. Iwanan mo lang pag-aaral. No? And waste. Yung, for example, kumukuha ka ng pagkain na hindi mo makakain lahat ng mga sobra. Sayang. Sabi ni Pope Francis, parang ninanakawan na rin natin ang mahihirap pag naglalagay tayo ng mga pagkain sa ating plato na hindi natin mauubos. Question 509. What is the content of the social doctrine of the church? So, anong content ng subject natin, the social doctrine of the church? The social doctrine of the church is an organic, no, kabuuan, at saka nag-evolve, development of the truth of the gospel, truth ng gospel, above the dignity of the human person. Yan ang una, may dignidad ang tao. And his social dimension, offering three things. No? First is principles for reflection. So yung mga sinabi ko sa inyo, mga principles, maalala ba ninyo? Principle of subsidiarity. Gamitin natin yan sa mag-reflect sa nangyayari sa lipunan at saka sa dignity of the human person. Subsidiarity, common good, solidarity, universal destination of goods, and private property. So yan yung mga prinsipyo dapat na gagamitin natin to reflect. No? Next, criteria for judgment. No? Ano yung mga criteria natin for judgment to judge social aspect. No? Like for example, the incoming election. So ano yung mga prinsipyo natin? For example, sa subsidiarity, no? Dapat no? Huwag didiktahan ng barangay officials kung sinong iboboto ng tao. Yan ang mababa, no? Okay, no vote buying, no? So, yan po, no? And then, paano mo i-apply, Father, yung common good, no? Itong ginagawa ba ay para sa kabutihan na karami ng conditions na ma-reach natin yung fulfillment natin, okay? Alright? So, for example, yung divorce, no? Mag-reflect ka, ito ba ay para sa common good, kabutihan. Kasi family is the basic unit of society. Pag siraan mong pamilya, siraan na rin ang lipunan. So yan, no? And then solidarity, yung malasakit, no? Affected sa Typhoon Ulysses, no? Sa mga nawalan ng bahay sa Danaili, no? Ano yung pamalasakit natin, yung generosity natin. and universal destination of goods. No? So yun po, criteria for judgment, and norms and guidelines for action. So don't forget these three contents of the social doctrine of the church. Very important po ito. Principles for reflection, criteria for judgment, and norms and guidelines for action. So ito, tinanong ko sa inyo nito, dapat kailangan bang makialam ang simbahan sa politika? When does the church intervene in social areas? Depende, ang sagot depende. The church intervenes, pwedeng makialam ang simbahan by making a moral judgment. Isang judgment moral sa nangyayari sa lipunan, sa election, sa vote buying, sa divorce. Okay? And about judgment about economic and social matters. By making a moral judgment about economic and social matters, yung pagtakbo ni Duterte ng pagiging Vice President, ano kaya ang moral judgment diyan? Principles for reflection, criteria for judgment. When the fundamental rights of the persons, the common good, para sa common good ba, or the salvation of souls requires it. So diyan makikialam ang simbahan na ang gawin niya is moral judgment. Hindi siya makipag-away o makipagdigmaan sa gobyerno about economic social matters, moral, when the fundamental rights of the person, the common good, or the salvation of souls requires it. Kapag nire-require para sa karapatan ng tao, para sa kabutihan ng karami, at kaligtasan ng mga kaluluwa. How should social and economic life be pursued? It should be pursued according to its own proper methods. Economy is economy, sociology, etc. Within the sphere of the moral order, at the service of the whole human being and of the entire human community in keeping with social justice. Maalala rin yung social justice na lesson natin. Social and economic life should have the human person as its author, center, and goal. Very important three words. Ang social life, economic life is for the person. The society is for the person and not the person for society. Diba? Yan ang yung quiz natin. So dapat ang social and economic life, ang human person dapat ang author, siya yung center and goal. What would be opposed to the social doctrine of the church? Itong question 512. Opposed to the social doctrine of the church are economic and social systems that sacrifice the basic rights of persons. So, opposed tayo sa mga economy o social system na sinasakripisyong basic right ng tao. Ano bang basic right ng tao? Number one is the right to life. Second, the right to study, and the right to choose one's own religion, the right to build a family. So yan, or that make profit their exclusive norm or ultimate end. Yung ganansya lang ang mas importante kaysa sa tao. For this reason, the church rejects the ideologies associated in modern times with communism or with atheistic and totalitarian forms of socialism. But in the practice of capitalism, the church also rejects self-centered individualism and an absolute primacy of the laws of the marketplace over human labor. Father, ano ba tong communism nito? Communism, community, common. Ibig sabihin walang private property, lahat ay common, no? Lahat ay pagmamay-ari ng lahat. So yan, no? And then atheistic, walang Diyos, no? na mga society, and totalitarian, no? Lahat ay may dictatorship. Socialism, lahat ay social. Wala nang individualism. Pero ang capitalism is capital, na ibig sabihin mas importante ang market, ang profit, no? Yung capital, pera. Okay, so self-centered individualism ito, and absolute primacy of the laws of the marketplace over human labor. Okay. So what is the meaning of work? Very important po ang work sa social doctrine of the church. Isang area ito ng social doctrine of the church. No? Maraming areas ang social doctrine, like for example, family and work, economy, politics, no? International community, environment. So ang work, dito nyo pwedeng i-apply ang principles of reflection, yung subsidiarity, no? Yung sa work, no? Na igagalang ng boss ang initiative ng mga mababang manggagawa, no? Common good, no? Solidarity, no? Namatayan yung isang worker, solidarity. Nagkasakit, no? Kaya andyan yung SSS, no? PhilHealth. Okay, universal destination of goods, no? Private property. So work is both a duty. Isang duty. Kaya sabi ni St. Paul, if you don't work, you don't have the right to eat. No work, no eat. Parang pa naman, no? No study, no eat. Okay. And a right, isang karapatan na magtrabaho, through which human beings collaborate with God the Creator. Yan ang kahalagan ng trabaho. Kaya nga nag-aaral kayo para makatapos kayo ng college at para makapagtrabaho kayo at meron kayong pera. No? Yung pera yan is paghanap buhay. Okay? So yan, indeed by working with commitment, dapat may committed tayo and competence, ibigay natin yung best natin. Kaya my dear grade 12, pag magka-college kayo, dapat ang tanong ninyo yung 4 P's na lagi kong tinatawag na passion, potential, purpose, and peso. So napaka-importante po yung passion. What are you passionate about? Saan ka ba nag-e-enjoy na isang bagay? No, yun dapat malaman mo. And second is potential. What are you good at? Saan ka ba magaling? So dapat saan ka ba magaling at saan ka at doon sa magaling ka, nag-e-enjoy ka, yan ang purpose mo. Kaya dapat yan ang work mo, ang tatahakin mong kurso. And doon saan ka magaling at doon ka nag-enjoy, diyan ka nag-create ng peso, ng pera. Magaling ka sa pag-awit, pagkanta. That's your potential, that's your passion. So dapat mag-aral ka ng kurso na related diyan. Okay? Mahilig ka sa science, engineering, etc. sa pagtuturo. And we fulfill the potential yan inscribed in our nature. So bawat isa sa atin may potential, may talent, meron bawat isa sa atin ay magaling tayo sa isang bagay. Honor the Creator's gifts. I-honor natin yung mga gifts ni Lord sa atin and the talents received from Him. Provide for ourselves. No? Kapag ang trabaho you provide for yourself and for our families. Like for example, ngayon, birthday ng aking pamangkin. Nagbigay ako ng 3,000 pesos. Papambili ng Bluetooth speaker. O huwag niya sabihin sana all. Ha? Pati yung kuya ko, no? Pinigyan ko rin ng 1,000. So for our families, no? Paano ma-acquire yan kung hindi ako nagkatrabaho? And serve the human community. Anong work mo, Father? Saan ka ba magaling, Father? Magaling ako sa ganito, sa teaching, sa preaching. Ay, nag-e-enjoy ako rito, no? Para bang walang ka-effort, no? Kasi dito ako magaling at ito ang purpose ko at dito ako nagkakaroon ng peso, ng pera. Furthermore, by the grace of God, work can be a means of sanctification. You make yourself holy, banal sa trabaho mo. No? So you will be a holy priest, holy teacher, holy engineer sa trabaho ninyo. Pati housewife, Father, of course, no, trabaho rin yan. Unpaid job ang pag-aaruga ng mga anak. And collaboration with Christ for the salvation of others. When we work, we collaborate with Christ for the salvation of others. Father, anong trabaho? Wala ka pa kaming trabaho. Anong trabaho namin ngayon mga estudyante? Guess what? What is your work? Alam na ninyo. Ang work ninyo ngayon ay study, pag-aaral. At bakit kayo nag-aaral? Para mas may matutunan. Bakit kailangan may matutunan? Para makapagtrabaho later on. Bakit gusto nyo magtrabaho? Magkaroon ng pera, provide for ourselves, etc. Kaya dapat yung kurso na papasukan mo, doon ka talaga magaling, yun talagang gusto mo. No? Alright? 514. To what type of work does every person have a right? Anong klaseng trabaho na may karapatan ang isang tao? Access to secure and honest employment. Dapat secure. Honest employment must be open to all without unjust discrimination. Walang palakasan. And with respect for free economic initiative. No? Dapat kuha ng creativity, ang initiative, no? And fair compensation. No? Kung mas marami kang trabaho, dapat mas malaki yung sahod mo, no? Mas mahirap na trabaho. Alright? Question 515, what responsibility does the state have in regard to labor? Anong responsibilidad ng gobyerno? May panggap ititrabaho. It is the role of the state to guarantee individual freedom. Ayan. Dapat may individual freedom and private property. I-guarantee yan ng gobyerno. Na sa business, no, kailangan na may risk, may kanya-kanyang initiative, no, ipating private property, as well as a stable currency, yung peso, and efficient public services, transportation, communication, Wi-Fi services. No. It's also the state's responsibility, pag state ay government, to oversee and direct the exercise of human rights in the economic sector. Kaya meron pong DOLE, Department of Labor and Employment. May karapatan ang mga manggagawa. No? Sa economic, according to circumstances, society must help citizens to find work. No? Tulungan ng gobyerno ang mga tao na maghanap ng trabaho. What is the task of business management? Okay, so mag-manage ng business, anong task? Business managers, yung mga business people like si Gilbert Ian Chan, no, si Ate Melody de la Cruz, no, Ate Lolita Bugaring, mga business managers yan, si Arnel, no, Manguba, si Carlo sa kanyang Wi-Fi are responsible for the economic and ecological effects of their operations. So, responsible sila sa economic effect ng operasyon nila, kung malugi man ito o hindi, bla bla bla. Sa ecological, dapat tumulong sila sa kapaligiran. Hindi dapat nakakasama yung business nila sa kapaligiran. They must consider the good of persons, itong mga business managers na ito, and not only the increase of profits, no? Hindi pwede na kahit sira na yung tinitinda mo, ay wag mong itinda dahil lang sa profit. No? Pero of course, profit is a sign of good business. Of course, wag dapat malugi, kung hindi mag-foreclose, mabankrupt. Pero even though profits are necessary to assure investments, no? The future of the business, employment, and the good progress of economic life, pero ang importante, mas mahalaga kaysa sa ganansya ay ang tao. Okay? Tao. What are the duties of workers? So ano naman ang duty natin na mga workers like me? Like you, ang work ninyo ngayon ay nag-aaral. They must carry out their work in a conscientious way with competence. Dapat ikaw yung pinaka-the best na student, you do your best. Ikaw yung pinaka-the best na preacher, na teacher sa kaya mo. It's not winning, no? It's not losing. Para sa akin, it is doing and giving your best. What matters in life? Are you giving your best, my dear grade 12 learners, in your studies? No? Competence. Focus on what you are good at and delegate your weaknesses. No? And dedication. No? Dedication. No? Seeking to resolve any controversies kung may pag-aaway sa working place with dialogue. Recourse to a non-violent strike. No? Pwedeng mag-strike ang mga manggagawa kasi mababa ang sahod at hindi tinataas, no, is morally legitimate when it appears to be the necessary way to obtain a proportionate benefit and it takes into account the common good. How is justice and solidarity among nations brought about? Paano ang katarungan at malasakit sa mga nasyon. On the international level, lagi nating tatandaan na hindi lang Pilipinas ang bansa dito sa mundo. We belong to the planet Earth, to the world. No? So internationally, all nations and institutions must carry out their work in solidarity, no? Pamalasakit and subsidiarity, paggalang sa independence o sovereignty ng isang bansa for the purpose of eliminating, tanggalin, or at least reducing poverty. Na marami pa ring mahirap dito na lang sa Santo Tomas, sa Danaili, sa Sirit, Kanayon, ang daming mahihirap. So at least no, ang gawin natin lahat internationally ay eliminate or at least i-reduce natin ang kahirapan. Kaya po yung scholarship ng EDM o yung MECONG, ang solusyon nila sa kahirapan ay ang pag-aaral. Kaya mag-aral kayong mabuti kasi yan ang solusyon sa kahirapan. Okay? The inequality of resources and economic potential in equal, economic and social injustices, the exploitation of persons, pinagkatrabaho mga menor de edad, no? The accumulation of debts by poor countries, and the perverse mechanisms that impede the development of the less advanced countries. Last two, 519, in what way do Christians participate in political and social life? Paano ba mga Kristiyano ay mag-participate sa buhay politika at buhay lipunan? The lay faithful. No, hindi ang pari, Father, ikaw na lang sanang mayor. Ang galing-galing mo, Lodi. No, hindi. No? Hindi pwede. Kayo, lay faithful, take part directly. No? Kami lang ay mag-form ng konsyensya in political and social life. Kaya sana kayo, mga grade 12 learners, na kapag-aral kayo ng social doctrine of the church in the future kung maaari, at yan ang passion ninyo, diyan kayo magaling, no? Diyan kayo nag-enjoy, no? Be a politician. No? Be a politician. By animating temporal realities with a Christian spirit. Kung maging barangay captain ka, be a Christian barangay captain. Christian kagawad. No? And collaborating with all as authentic witnesses of the gospel and agents of peace and justice. Last but not the least, yay! By what is love for the poor inspired? No, love for the poor. Yung mahihirap. Love for the poor is inspired by the gospel of the Beatitudes. Yan ang inspired. No? Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God. Blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Love for the poor is inspired by the gospel of the Beatitudes and by the example of Jesus in his constant concern for the poor. Jesus ay malapit sa mahihirap, hindi lang physically, kundi emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. Jesus said, whatever you have done to the least of my brethren, you have done to me. Matthew chapter 25 verse 40. Kung ano ang ginawa mo sa iyong kapwa, ay ginawa mo rin kay Jesus. Love for the poor, ang pagmamahal sa mahihirap, shows itself through the struggle against material poverty and also against the many forms of cultural, moral, and religious poverty. So mag-struggle, magipaglaban, i-reduce natin ang material na kahirapan, ang cultural na kahirapan, ang moral na kahirapan, at religious na kahirapan. The spiritual and corporal works of mercy. So ano kaya to, Father? Spiritual and corporal works of mercy. So, pag-aralan ninyo ito, pero sabihin ko sa inyo, pwede nyo gawin ito by love of the poor. 7 corporal works of mercy, feed the hungry. No? Isang araw, nagmisa ako, no? May isang nanay na nag-suicide, no? Okay, dahil sa daming utang, tinignan ko yung 2 anak niya, maliliit pa lang, ang papayatot, no? Malnourished. So, feed the hungry. 2, give drink to the thirsty. 3, clothe the naked. 4, shelter the homeless. 5, visit the sick. 7, visit the imprisoned. And 7, bury the dead. So yan ang 7 corporal works of mercy. Pakisulat yan, paki-research. Lalabas yan sa exam. And 7 spiritual works of mercy. Isa, corporal, ito spiritual. Counsel the doubtful. Second, instruct the ignorant. Third, admonish sinners. Fourth, comfort the afflicted. Fifth, forgive offenses. 6, bear wrongs patiently. And 7, pray for the living and the dead. Okay, so kailangan sana ma-memorize niyo ito. Itong mga corporal and spiritual works of mercy. No? Ito ay tinikit pakakitaan, iti panagayat tayo kadagiti na panglaw. And the many charitable institutions of the church, mga hospital, paaralan, yung Catholic school natin dito ay ginawa yan ng simbahan as charitable institution. Okay? So ano pa, mga house of the orphans, formed throughout the centuries are a concrete witness to the preferential love for the poor. Ano ibig sabihin na mas preference mo ang pagmamahal sa mahihirap. Bakit, Father? Kasi mahirap na sila. Walang magtatanggol sa kanila. Buti ang mayayaman, no, may pera silang pambili, pangbayad sa... Okay? Sorry, may tumawag kanina isang estudyante natin sa grade 11. No? So yeah, preferential love for the poor. Kawawa na nga sila, kaya dapat may pagmamahal tayo sa mahirap, which characterizes the disciples of Jesus.